it's Tasha with The Purposeful You. Today we're going to talk about fall gardening. This is our first year in this vegetable garden. We have had so much fun planting from spring, summer, and fall crops, and now we're finally at the fall stage. So it's mid-August here in Zone 9B. This video today is all about what vegetables we're going to plant by seed, which ones we're going to purchase starters for, and how we're going to do some crop rotation, and why I chose to put certain vegetables in certain beds. So let's get started. Here's some of the vegetables we purchased from the garden center. Let me show you each one and why we chose it. Okay, first up is broccolini. We're actually doing 6 broccolinis. This is the first time we've done this. We're really excited here. And this is what it looks like when you purchase it from the nursery or your garden center. Now it takes 60 to 80 days to mature, so if it's already mid-August, you will want to purchase starters so that you have some broccolini before your first frost date, which for us is the beginning of November. We also always purchase organic. It's just something that we want to do to provide the most nutrients to our family. And so here is what broccolini looks like. Next up is pak choi. We actually purchased some starters here in the mid-August, and then I'm actually going to plant some by seed in the next 2 weeks as well to have some succession planting. So succession planting means that you're going to plant in about 2 to 3 week intervals to make sure that you don't have a whole bunch of a vegetable at one time. I like to do this with lettuce, with pak choi, things that don't freeze as well, or maybe you want to enjoy fresh, but you don't want to have an abundance at one time. So plant every 2 weeks. Okay, next up is kale. We bought 12 plants, 2 different varieties. Kale is one of those beautiful vegetables that you can enjoy throughout the winter. We keep it in our garden and we enjoy all the way till next spring. It starts to come alive again the next year. So don't take out your plants before maybe it snows where you are or before your first frost date. Make sure that you keep your kale plants in throughout the winter so you can enjoy it in the springtime. We chose to do some purple kale here, and then we also decided to do some of the curly kale, they like to call it, which is what we like to use for kale chips. Last but not least, Brussels sprouts. Let me do a close-up here. Brussels sprouts are one of the vegetables that we have never grown. We hope to have some Brussels sprouts here in November. That's what gardening's all about, is trying new things. So this is what a Brussels sprout starter looks like, very similar to the broccolini. And we are gonna plant these in large spaces. Brussels sprouts can grow quite big. They can grow about 2 feet wide. So you do want some space if you're gonna be growing Brussels sprouts this fall. One thing I love to do is a garden journal. So I have our whole summer layout here. This was our spring to summer garden plan. Now I like to go through and figure out what worked, what didn't, and now I'm gonna figure out the best crop rotation for my fall vegetables so that I can create a fall garden plan with the space that we have available right now in the garden. So I'm gonna show you what we're gonna plant by seed now so that you can see our complete fall garden plan. We love using West Coast seeds. They are local to us. So I'm going to show you what we're going to plant. We're going to plant 2 types of chard. We do the red rhubarb chard and the peppermint chard. We're going to plant some beets here for the fall and to enjoy before the holiday season. We're going to do some cabbage, some pak choi. We're going to do carrots. That's another big one that we're going to plant right now. Did you know that carrots actually get sweeter over the winter? So we leave a quarter of our carrots from the rows over winter so that we can enjoy in February, March, and they are so good. They are just a lot sweeter. The next up, we're going to plant some snap peas. We're going to try it. I've never planted snap peas for the fall garden, so we're going to see if we can do that as we are mid-August. This is the time to plant some peas if you want to harvest before your first frost date. We're going to do some spinach. We're going to do some lettuce here. And then we're also going to try turnips. I've never done turnips before. Another one we're going to try here. That's the beauty of gardening. You're always trying something new. We're going to do 2 types of radishes. Radishes are my favorite, and my son loves them. 4-year-old son eats them all the time. And you know, have fun with your seed pickings. We purchased some seeds that were colorful. So we're doing some purple carrots, some rainbow carrots. And then there's also a few different types of spinach. Make sure you look at the spinach that is bolt resistant if you're gonna plant right now, because we're still in some hot weather in August. So look for some spinach that is bolt resistant. So those are the seeds we're gonna plant. Those are the starters we're gonna plant. So we're gonna get planting. First up, we are planting beets in this bed here. What I like to do is I like to make sure that I have the irrigation in the spot that I want it to be in. So I can manipulate this type of irrigation to make the rows that I need. I already planted chard over here, so I'm actually going to be moving this over. We're gonna do a row in the middle here so we can do beets on each side. So we currently have a bed with beets. We are on the second round here. So we are gonna actually switch the beds now to make sure that we are doing crop rotation in the garden. And that's why we're gonna be planting beets in another bed, as this will be our summer harvest. First, I'll take my finger along the irrigation and make a nice trench here that I'm gonna be putting the seeds in. They usually like to be buried 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Here's what beet seeds look like. They're very unique. They're quite big, so it's nice and easy to plant them. I plant them about 2 centimeters apart. So beet leaves will grow quite big, so you do want to make sure that you plant your beets in about 6 inches in your garden bed, or you can plant them a little bit tighter, but just know that the leaves may overflow in your garden bed. Okay, so now you can see the seeds here. So now I'm just going to put over the soil just ever so slightly, so they are about 1/2 inch deep, and then I'm going to pat it down, and then I'm going to water it after. So this is the beet bed I showed you before. Now I'm going to interplant the cabbage and the pak choi in here by seed, because these will be ready to harvest, I would say, in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So it's a perfect time to plant some seeds that are companion plants to what you already have in the garden. So let me go ahead here, and I'm going to do 3 rows of cabbage. So I've just prepped the bed a little bit, and now I'm going to make sure that I have all the beet leaves and I've thinned the beets properly so that I can plant my cabbage row here. So I'm just going to put my finger through. You'll see here cabbage seeds are very small, so they will be planted quite close together. So we planted some pak choi and cabbage by seed. Now you can see here, this is actually a carrot and beet bed that we're still going to be harvesting into September, but there is a big gap here in the front. We are going to actually plant the pak choi starters in the front here in this beautiful empty real estate, because it is a companion plant to carrots. Okay, we're gonna get on our gloves for this one. I like to use some short gloves when I'm doing the starters. When I'm pruning and harvesting or cleaning up the garden, I like to use longer gloves, but I like to use some short gloves here if I'm just planting some starters. So let's plant the pak choi. Okay, so we purchased a 6-pack here. Now I'm gonna actually plant them in clumps like they are here, or I might separate them depending on how strong they are. Okay, so when you take pak choi out, you'll see here that there's actually quite a few different shoots. So this is quite a few different plants. I'm going to separate them the best as possible so that I can yield the most pak choi. Okay, so you'll see here, here's the plant. I'm going to dig a little hole. I'm going to dig a little hole, and then we're going to put it in. And then you're just going to put soil all around it. Do not bury the plant very much, as you don't want it to suffocate. And then I just pat around, and you'll give it a really good water. So here's our cucumber bed. We're gonna try something new this year. I'm gonna be planting peas along the cucumbers, as cucumbers and peas are companion plants. And I'm gonna see if we're gonna get a pea fall harvest. Okay, you can see here that I planted these peas. These are actually going to be shelling peas in this bed, as they will get about 6 feet tall. And you can see the cucumbers are just beautiful beside them. So this is going to be a trial this year to see if we're going to get a harvest. Before you plant, you want to prep your bed. I usually add a little bit of compost to the top. I also like to just skim the top a little bit, work the soil only a couple inches, as you don't want to disturb all those microorganisms in your garden, especially if you've had some crops planting in it before. So I'm just gonna prep the bed here, get the irrigation in, and then I'm gonna start planting the kale and the Brussels sprouts. So when you get your starter packs, look and see how far apart your plants should be, and then you're gonna map it out and then plant it all at the same time. So I dug 6 holes already, and now I'm just gonna pop the kale out, and then I'm gonna put them in the holes, and then we're gonna go around and make sure that they are planted nice and beautifully here. When you're planting your starters, you wanna make sure that you are not covering the base too much, because that will just suffocate the plant. So make sure that you just pat around it, make that hole nice and deep. Sometimes I even like to, which is a really good practice, is to rough up see these roots here? You might want to rough them up just a little bit so that it's not a complete shocker when they're going to go into the ground here. That's how you plant kale. Next up, we're going to plant these Brussels sprouts here. So we did half the bed with kale, half the bed will be Brussels sprouts. Now these are in the brassicas cabbage family, so you do want to plant these together. And sometimes Brussels sprouts and kale do not like to be planted with others. So look and see what are companion plants before you plant. So Brussels sprouts need a good 2 feet apart, so we're going to space these really well. Okay, so here we have it. Brussels and kale bed is officially planted. Okay, next up we're gonna plant the broccolini here in front of our sunflowers and cosmos. So this will be really nice to have some protection in August and be ready to harvest in the fall. Broccoli needs a little bit of space to grow too, so I'm gonna be just planting 4 plants right here. If you ever have any leftovers, definitely figure out what other beds you could plant them in, or you can always plant them in a pot. Next up is carrots. My biggest tip in planting carrots is to overseed. Plant more seeds than you think, because it's better to thin them than to have these huge gaps. Also, watering is so important. So I'm going to show you how to plant them. Carrot seeds are very small. You can see here, this is how small carrot seeds are. So what I'm going to do here, like I've done with most of them, is I am going to put that trench along the irrigation. So we're going to put a trench here, and then I'm going to overseed. Let me show you. So this is what I mean by overseeding. You can see here that there are quite a few seeds in one spot. This will help you in being successful in growing carrots. Next up, we're going to plant these moody radishes. I love how dark and gorgeous they are. Again, you're going to make your little trench, and then you're just going to seed away. I usually put them about, I don't know, a 1/4 inch deep, and then you're going to put about 25 seeds per row. And then I'm going to cover them ever so slightly, just like I've done with most of the seeds, with my hand. Thanks for watching our fall planting video. I hope I've inspired you to maybe plant a little garden this year or a big garden this fall. Even though it's mid-August here, you can plant most of these seeds up until the first week of September. Make sure you look up your first frost date and then work your way backwards. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and like this video, and we'll see you next time.